Captain Sarah Chen floated in the observation deck of the hidden station, watching the distant stars through the special glass that made their base invisible to scanning equipment. For 3 years, she had been stationed at Outpost 7, a secret facility built inside a dead asteroid at the edge of known space. Her job was simple: watch and listen to everything the Galactic Council did. The Galactic Council thought they ruled the galaxy. 12 different alien species had joined together 50 years ago to create what they called the supreme government of all civilized worlds. They made rules about who could travel where, who could mine which planets, and who was allowed to call themselves a real civilization. Sarah pulled up the latest intelligence reports on her screen. The Council was having another meeting about humanity. She read through the translated text, shaking her head at what she saw. Species classification: human. Category 7, developing species. Threat level: minimal. Intelligence assessment: below average. Recommendation: monitor for self-destruction or eventual submission request. The report went on to describe humans as primitive newcomers who lack the courage to make proper contact with superior civilizations. Suggested that Earth would either destroy itself within 100 years or eventually come crawling to the Council, begging to be accepted as a protected species under alien supervision. Sarah laughed quietly. If only they knew the truth. 50 years ago, when humanity first developed faster-than-light travel, Earth's leaders had made a smart decision. Instead of rushing out to meet other alien civilizations, they chose to watch and learn first. While the Council assumed humans were hiding in fear, Earth had been busy building the largest secret network of colonies, mining operations, and research stations the galaxy had ever seen. The communication device next to Sarah beeped softly. She pressed a button and heard the voice of Commander Rodriguez from the hidden colony on Kepler 442b. Chen, you need to hear this. We just intercepted a Council planning session. They're talking about human territory again. Sarah's screen displayed the translated conversation from earlier that day. High Counselor Vexthul of the Zenthari Empire was speaking to representatives from the other 11 Council species. The human systems contain valuable resources, Vexthul was saying. Their primitive technology cannot properly extract these materials. When we eventually absorb their territory, the Zenthari claim mining rights to their outer system planets. Another voice joined the conversation, this one belonging to Trade Minister Klix from the Hegemony. The Zenthari cannot claim everything. The Hegemony has equal right to human resources. Perhaps we should divide their territory now, before they become aware of their true value. Sarah felt her anger rising as she listened to the aliens casually discussing how to divide up human space. These creatures were talking about her home, her people, as if humans were just obstacles to be removed from valuable territory. The conversation continued with different Council members debating which species would make the best supervisors for humanity once they were conquered. They spoke about humans the way farmers might discuss livestock, debating the best methods to control and use them. Previous examples show that primitive species respond well to firm guidance, said another voice. The humans will likely be grateful for Council protection once they understand how dangerous the galaxy can be for undeveloped civilizations. Sarah turned off the recording and contacted Earth Command through their secret communication network. Within minutes, she was speaking directly to Admiral Torres, the head of Earth's hidden military forces. Admiral, the Council is getting bolder about their plans for human territory, Sarah reported. They're not even trying to hide their intentions anymore. Admiral Torres appeared on her screen, his face serious. We've been monitoring similar communications across all Council space. Our intelligence network reports that Council species now openly discuss humanity as a future conquest. They believe we're too primitive to detect their communications. Sarah looked at the data streaming across her secondary screens. Information was coming in from dozens of hidden human outposts throughout the galaxy. Each report showed the same thing. The Council was growing more confident that humanity posed no threat. The irony was incredible. While the Council dismissed humans as primitive and fearful, Earth had spent 50 years building the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Human colonies now existed in over 200 star systems that the Council believed were empty or uninhabitable. Earth's technology had advanced far beyond anything the Council possessed, and human intelligence agents had successfully infiltrated every major Council organization. What are our current fleet numbers? Sarah asked. Operational fleets in 70 systems with a total of over 3,000 ships, Admiral Torres replied. Our newest vessels use technology the Council considers impossible. Stealth systems, energy weapons, and FTL drives that are decades ahead of their best equipment. Sarah knew that Earth could have revealed itself at any time over the past 50 years. Humanity could have demanded respect, claimed territory, or even conquered the Council if they chose to do so. But Earth's leaders had decided that peace was better than war, and patience was better than aggression. The plan had been simple. Let the Council continue believing humans were primitive, while Earth built up its strength in secret. When humanity finally revealed itself, they would be so powerful that no one would dare threaten them. The Council would have no choice but to accept humans as equals. But lately, the Council's attitude toward humanity had been changing. Instead of just ignoring Earth, they were starting to make active plans for human territory. Their communications showed increasing confidence that humanity would be easy to conquer when the time came. Admiral, how long can we maintain this secrecy? Sarah asked. Our analysts believe we can remain hidden for another 10 to 20 years if needed, Torres replied. But the political situation is changing. The Council is becoming more aggressive toward all non-member species. They've conquered 3 developing civilizations in the past 5 years. Sarah had read those reports. The Council's method was always the same. They would approach a new species with offers of protection and membership. If the species refused or tried to negotiate, the Council would demonstrate their military power by destroying civilian targets. Most species surrendered quickly after seeing what happened to those who resisted. Do you think they'll try the same approach with us? Sarah asked. Intelligence suggests it's very likely, Torres said. Council communications indicate they're planning to make official contact with Earth within the next year. Based on their past behavior, they'll probably demand immediate surrender and threaten civilian targets if we refuse. Sarah understood the problem. Earth's strategy of remaining hidden only worked as long as the Council left humanity alone. If the Council decided to force contact and make demands, Earth would have to choose between surrender and revealing their true strength. What does Earth Command plan to do if they make contact? Sarah asked. That decision will be made by the President and the Defense Council, Torres replied. But our orders are clear. Continue monitoring and be ready for anything. If the Council threatens human civilians, all secrecy protocols are suspended. After ending the communication, Sarah returned to watching the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the Galactic Council was making plans for humanity's future without asking what humans wanted. They were so confident in their superiority that they never considered the possibility that the primitive species they looked down on might be far more advanced than they appeared. Sarah hoped that wisdom would eventually prevail and that peaceful contact could still be established. But she also knew that if the Council chose the path of threats and demands, they would discover that Earth's silence had never been about fear. It had been about giving them a chance to prove they deserved respect. That chance was running out. The massive ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system without warning. President Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the holographic display show 12 enormous vessels approaching from deep space. Each ship was over 3 kilometers long, their hulls decorated with the symbols of the Galactic Council. Madam President, we're receiving a transmission, reported Communications Officer Davis. It's being broadcast on all frequencies, directed at Earth. Put it on the main screen, Elena ordered. The hologram changed to show a tall, reptilian creature wearing elaborate robes and jewelry. Its scales were deep purple, and its yellow eyes looked directly at the camera with obvious confidence. Behind the alien, Elena could see the bridge of what was clearly the flagship of the Council fleet. Greetings, primitive inhabitants of the planet you call Earth, the creature began, its voice translated by Earth's computers. I am High Counselor Vexthal of the Zenthari Empire, speaking on behalf of the Galactic Council. We come to offer you a great opportunity. Elena glanced at Admiral Torres, who stood beside her with a grim expression. They had both known this day would come eventually. For too long your species has hidden in fear at the edge of known space. Vexthal continued. The Council has decided to extend mercy to your developing civilization. We offer you the chance to join the galactic community under our wise guidance. The alien paused, as if expecting some immediate response from Earth. When none came, He continued with growing irritation in his voice. The terms of our generous offer are simple. Your species will surrender all territorial claims beyond your home system. Earth will be placed under the protection of the Zenthari Empire, and humans will be granted the status of protected developing species. In exchange, we will provide you with basic council technology and ensure your continued existence. Elena felt her anger rising as she listened to the condescending tone. The alien was speaking to humanity the way an adult might speak to a badly behaved child. We understand that your primitive minds may have difficulty comprehending the honor we offer you, Vexthul said, his tone becoming even more insulting. To help you understand, let me explain your situation clearly. You are barely evolved primates who have recently learned to leave your home planet. The galaxy is full of dangers that your simple technology cannot handle. Without council protection, your species will certainly destroy itself within a few generations. Admiral Torres stepped closer to Elena. Our long-range sensors show more council ships approaching from multiple directions, he whispered. This isn't just a diplomatic mission. They're positioning for a show of force. On the screen, Vexthul spread his arms in what was probably meant to be a generous gesture. The Council has studied your species for many years. We know you are capable of basic tool use and simple space travel. With proper guidance from superior civilizations, humans might eventually become useful contributors to galactic society. Elena had to resist the urge to laugh. The Council had been studying humanity, while completely missing the fact that human agents had infiltrated every council government and military organization. Their intelligence was so poor that they had no idea Earth possessed technology that was decades ahead of their own. We give you 72 hours to consider our generous offer, Vexthul announced. At the end of that time, you will broadcast your surrender and acceptance of council protection. Failure to comply will force us to take corrective action to help you understand your proper place in the cosmic order. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Elena looked around at her staff, seeing the same mixture of anger and disbelief on every face. Corrective action, Admiral Torres repeated quietly. They're threatening to attack us if we don't surrender. What's the status of our defensive systems? Elena asked. All hidden installations are online and ready, Torres replied. Our fleet commanders are requesting permission to decloak and show these aliens what they're really dealing with. Elena shook her head. Not yet. Let's see how far they're willing to push this. Over the next day, more council transmissions reached Earth, but these weren't directed at humanity. Instead, the council was broadcasting throughout their territory, sharing recordings of their generous offer to the primitive humans. The alien leaders were clearly treating Earth's situation as entertainment for their citizens. Elena read the translated broadcasts with growing disgust. Council news programs were making jokes about humanity's terror-induced silence. Social media across council space was filled with comments about how the scared little primates were probably hiding under their beds, too frightened to respond to their betters. One particularly offensive broadcast came from a Zenthari entertainment channel. The host, a smaller reptilian alien, was making fun of human appearance and intelligence while showing crude cartoons of humans cowering in caves. Perhaps the primitive humans don't understand our language, the host said, laughing. Maybe we should try communicating with pictures, like we would with any other animals. The worst part was that some council citizens were placing bets on how humanity would respond. Most assumed Earth would surrender immediately. Others thought humans were too stupid to understand the offer and would have to be conquered by force. They really believe we're that primitive, Elena said to her advisors during an emergency meeting. After 50 years of interacting with the galaxy, they still think we're barely intelligent animals. Intelligence Director Chen, Sarah's mother, presented the latest reports from their hidden network. Our agents confirm that the council leadership genuinely believes their own propaganda about humanity. They've convinced themselves that our silence proves we're terrified and helpless. What about their military preparations? Elena asked. 12 ships in our system, with another 30 approaching from council territory, Admiral Torres reported. Their weapons are powered down, but they're clearly expecting an easy victory if we refuse their demands. Elena studied the tactical displays showing the positions of both council and hidden human forces. The irony was incredible. The council fleet was completely surrounded by human ships they couldn't detect. sitting in a star system that had been turned into the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. "Madam President," Communications Officer Davis interrupted, "we're receiving another transmission from the Council flagship." "Put it through," Elena ordered. Vexthul appeared on the screen again, but this time his attitude was different. The fake politeness was gone, replaced by obvious irritation. "Humans of Earth," he began, "your silence is beginning to try our patience. Perhaps you don't understand the honor we have offered you. Let me be more direct." The alien's yellow eyes narrowed as he continued. "You are a primitive species that poses no threat to anyone. Your simple technology and limited intelligence make you suitable only for basic labor under proper supervision. The Council offers you the chance to serve a useful purpose instead of wasting space and resources." Elena felt her jaw clench as Vexthul's tone became increasingly insulting. "If you continue this childish silence, we will be forced to demonstrate the consequences of refusing Council generosity. We have identified several of your crude space installations that can be easily destroyed to help focus your attention." The transmission showed tactical displays of human space stations and colonies that the Council believed they had discovered. Elena realized with alarm that they were looking at civilian research facilities and mining outposts. "Choose wisely, primitive humans," Vexthul concluded. "Accept our protection, or learn what happens to species that are too stubborn to accept reality." As the transmission ended, Elena looked around the command center. Every person present understood what had just happened. The Council wasn't just demanding surrender anymore. They were threatening to attack human civilians to force compliance. "Admiral," Elena said quietly, "prepare all fleets for immediate action, and get me a secure channel to address the entire galaxy." "Ma'am?" Torres asked. Elena's voice was calm, but her eyes were steel. "They wanted to see what humanity has been doing in the dark. I think it's time to show them." High Counselor Vexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the countdown timer approach 0. 72 hours had passed since the Council's generous offer to humanity, and Earth had maintained its stubborn silence. Now it was time to teach these primitive creatures about the consequences of defying superior civilizations. "Target confirmed, High Counselor," reported the weapons officer. "The human research station orbiting the fourth planet shows 15,000 life signs. A perfect demonstration of Council power." Vexthul studied the tactical display showing Europa Station, a small research facility that humans had built around one of their gas giant's moons. Intelligence reports indicated it was primarily a civilian installation, filled with scientists and their families. Destroying it would send a clear message about what happened to species that refused Council protection. "Excellent," Vexthul said, his reptilian features showing satisfaction. "Record this moment for transmission throughout Council space. Let all civilizations see what happens to those who mistake Council mercy for weakness." The communications officer activated recording systems as Vexthul prepared to deliver his final message to humanity. This would be broadcast across the entire galaxy, showing everyone how the Council dealt with stubborn primitives. "Humans of Earth," Vexthul began, his voice carrying the authority of the most powerful government in the galaxy. "Your silence has forced the Council to take corrective action. We will now demonstrate the price of refusing our generous protection." He paused, looking directly into the camera with his cold yellow eyes. "In 10 minutes we will destroy your research station as a gentle reminder of reality. This is what happens to species that are too primitive to understand their place in the cosmic order." But then Vexthul made a mistake that would change galactic history forever. Instead of ending the transmission there, he decided to elaborate on the Council's true intentions for humanity. "Let me be completely clear about your future," he continued, his voice filled with contempt. "Your species exists only because the Council permits it. Your children will grow up as livestock, useful only for basic labor under proper supervision. Your worlds will serve as farming colonies for superior species, who know how to use resources efficiently." The other Council representatives on the bridge nodded approvingly as Vexthul's speech became more brutal. "Your pathetic silence proves that humans are unworthy of even existing in the same galaxy as their betters," he declared. "When we have finished demonstrating our power, you will beg for the privilege of serving us. Those who prove useful will be allowed to live. The rest will be disposed of as efficiently as possible." Vexthul smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Consider this destruction a gift. We are teaching you the value of obedience before your species becomes our property. The countdown reached 1 minute. Weapon systems across the Council fleet powered up, targeting the defenseless research station. Vexthul prepared to give the order that would kill 15,000 human. Civilians and force Earth surrender, fire. When ready, he commanded. That was when everything changed. Every communication system in Council space suddenly activated at once. Screens, speakers, and data networks throughout the galaxy carried the same signal, bypassing all security systems and overriding every other transmission. The impossible had happened. Someone had taken control of the entire Council communication network. The face that appeared on every screen was human. A middle-aged woman with calm eyes and an expression of controlled anger sat behind what was clearly the desk of a planetary leader. Text at the bottom of the screen identified her as President Elena Vasquez of Earth. "Greetings, Galactic Council," she said, her voice carrying across thousands of star systems. "You wanted to see what humanity has been doing in the dark. Allow us to show you." On the Council flagship, alarms began blaring as tactical systems detected massive energy signatures throughout the solar system. What had appeared to be empty space suddenly filled with enormous human vessels, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the Council fleet. "Impossible," whispered the weapons officer, staring at his displays in shock. The small research station that was supposed to be an easy target suddenly transformed before their eyes. Hidden armor plating extended from concealed compartments, revealing Europa Station to be one of the most heavily defended installations any of them had ever seen. Weapon systems that shouldn't have existed powered up, targeting every Council ship in the system. But the real shock came when long-range sensors detected what was happening throughout the galaxy. In system after system that the Council had believed were empty or uninhabitable, massive human fleets were decloaking. Mining operations on supposedly barren worlds revealed themselves to be sprawling industrial complexes. The primitive newcomers had built an interstellar civilization that dwarfed the entire Council combined. "How is this possible?" Vexthul demanded, his confident demeanor cracking as he realized the scope of his miscalculation. President Vasquez continued her broadcast, her voice remaining calm despite the magnitude of what she was revealing. "For 50 years, humanity has watched the Council. We have studied your technology, learned your languages, and observed your treatment of other species. We hoped that peaceful coexistence was possible." The tactical displays showed human ships appearing in every Council system simultaneously, not attacking but simply making their presence known. Fleets that were larger and more advanced than anything the Council possessed were positioned throughout their territory. "We chose silence not from fear, but from hope," Vasquez continued. "We believed that given time, the Council might prove worthy of respect. We were wrong." Intelligence reports began flooding in from across Council space. Human agents who had been operating in secret for decades suddenly revealed themselves. They had infiltrated every major government, every military organization, every research facility. Humanity hadn't just been watching the Council. They had been inside their civilization the entire time. "Your threats against our civilians have forced us to abandon hope for peaceful relations," Vasquez said, her voice hardening. "You spoke of our children as livestock. You described our worlds as property to be divided among yourselves. You planned genocide while calling it mercy." Vexthul realized with growing horror that humanity could have conquered or destroyed the Council at any point over the past 50 years. Every ship in his fleet was now targeted by weapon systems that were decades more advanced than their own. The demonstration of power he had planned to make was nothing compared to what humanity was showing him now. "This is impossible," he said again, but his voice lacked conviction. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. "Admiral Torres," President Vasquez said, addressing someone off-screen, "please show the Council what our primitive technology can do." The space around Europa Station suddenly filled with a new type of energy that none of the Council scientists had ever seen before. The human weapons weren't just more powerful than Council technology. They operated on principles that the aliens considered impossible. "Stand down your weapons and withdraw from human space," Vasquez ordered, her message directed at Vexthul's fleet. "You have 10 seconds to comply." Vexthul looked at his weapons officer, who was staring at displays showing energy readings that made no sense. The human weapons were so far beyond Council technology that resistance was clearly hopeless. "High Counselor," The communications officer reported, his voice shaking. "We're receiving similar demands from human fleets in every council system. They're not requesting, they're ordering." For the first time in his life, Vexthul understood what it felt like to be completely outmatched by a superior civilization. The primitive species he had planned to enslave had been toying with the council for decades. "Withdraw," he ordered quietly. "Sir?" The weapons officer asked. "I said withdraw," Vexthul shouted, his composure finally breaking. "All ships retreat to the edge of the system immediately." As the council fleet began its humiliating retreat, President Vasquez delivered her final message. "You called us silent out of fear. You were wrong. We were silent out of hope. Thank you for helping us understand that hope was misplaced." The transmission ended, leaving the council fleet alone with the terrible realization of what they had awakened. Humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows, and the galaxy would never be the same. The council emergency session began within hours of their fleet's retreat from human space. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall on the council homeworld, their faces showing shock, fear, and confusion. High Counselor Vexthul sat at the center of the curved table, his purple scales having lost much of their usual luster. "How did we miss this?" demanded Trade Minister Clix, her insectoid features clicking with agitation. "Our intelligence services have been monitoring human space for 50 years. They reported a primitive species with basic technology." Admiral Zorax of the Krellian military slammed his massive fist on the table. "Our sensors detected no sign of advanced civilization. Their ships, their stations, their colonies, how did they hide everything?" Vexthul activated the holographic display at the center of the room, showing the recorded data from their encounter with humanity. The images were staggering. Massive human fleets materializing from nowhere, weapons technology that violated known physics, and defensive installations that had been completely invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. Analysis indicates that human stealth technology is at least 50 years ahead of our most advanced research, reported Chief Scientist Veltar. Their ships use some form of dimensional phase shifting that makes them undetectable to our sensors. "That's impossible," insisted Defense Coordinator Thix. "Phase manipulation requires energy, sources that don't exist. Our physicists proved it was theoretically impossible." "Apparently, human physicists disagree," Veltar replied dryly. The display changed to show tactical readings from the human weapons that had targeted their fleet. The energy signatures were unlike anything in Council databases, showing power levels that should have required entire planets to generate. "Their smallest frigates carry more firepower than our largest dreadnoughts," Admiral Zorax admitted reluctantly. "Our analysis suggests their technology is decades more advanced than ours in every category." Communication specialist Hexva spoke up from her station. "We're still receiving reports from our agents across the galaxy. Human fleets have appeared in every council system simultaneously. They're not attacking, but their presence makes it clear that they could destroy any target they choose." The assembly fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had revealed the ability to strike anywhere in council space at will, using technology that made resistance hopeless. "How many of them are there?" asked Administrator Kux. Veltar consulted his datapad. Initial estimates suggested humans had perhaps 50 ships total. Current observations indicate active fleets in over 70 star systems, with individual fleet sizes ranging from dozens to hundreds of vessels. "Hundreds?" Vexthul's voice cracked slightly. "In each system?" "The human fleet we encountered at their home system contained over 300 ships," Admiral Zorax confirmed. "And that was just what they allowed us to see. Our scans detected massive industrial complexes throughout their territory that could be producing thousands more vessels." Trade Minister Clix looked at the data streams flowing across her screen. "Our economic analysts have been tracking resource flows to human space for decades. We assumed they were inefficient and wasteful. Now it appears they were simply using those resources to build the largest industrial base in the galaxy." The revelation that humanity possessed superior technology was shocking enough, but the reports that followed were even more disturbing. Intelligence Director Nixaval entered the chamber carrying data chips that would change everything the Council thought they knew about their own security. "Council members," she began, her voice heavy with defeat, "we have discovered the scope of human intelligence operations within our territory. The holographic display showed images of humans in council military uniforms, government offices, and research facilities. Some were clearly disguised to look like other species, while others had somehow altered their appearance to blend in perfectly. This human identified himself as Research Assistant Krelvo at our primary weapons laboratory, Nixval explained, pointing to an image of what appeared to be a normal council scientist. He has been working there for 12 years with full security clearance. His real name is James Harrison, and he holds advanced degrees in physics and engineering from Earth universities that we didn't even know existed. More images followed, each one showing another human agent who had successfully infiltrated council society. Scientists, military officers, government administrators, even entertainment industry workers. Humanity had placed agents throughout council civilization. How many? Vexthul asked quietly. We've identified over 3,000 confirmed human agents so far, Nixval replied. Analysis suggests there may be 10 times that number operating. Throughout council space, the chamber erupted in shocked voices as representatives realized that humans had been inside their governments and militaries for decades. Every secret, every plan, every weakness had potentially been observed and reported back to Earth. They've been watching us, whispered Administrator Kix. All this time, they've been studying us like laboratory specimens. Communications specialist HFY's console chimed with an incoming transmission. Council members were receiving a broadcast from President Vasquez of Earth. Put it through, Vexthul ordered. Dreading what he was about to hear, President Vasquez appeared on the main screen, looking calm and professional despite having just revealed the largest intelligence operation in galactic history. Members of the Galactic Council, she began. By now you have discovered the extent of humanity's presence in your territory. I want to make our position clear, she paused, looking directly at the camera with the same steady gaze that had announced humanity's emergence from hiding. For 50 years, we have maintained agents within your civilization, not to steal secrets or plan attacks, but to understand who you really were. We hope to find evidence that peaceful coexistence was possible. The display behind Vasquez showed technical specifications and blueprints that made several council scientists gasp in recognition. These were advanced weapons and defensive systems that Earth had developed but never used. Our technology surpasses yours in every measurable category, Vasquez continued. Our industrial capacity exceeds the combined output of all council worlds. Our military forces could have conquered your territory at any time over the past 30 years. Admiral Zorak studied the technical readouts with growing amazement. These energy weapon designs, they're based on principles we haven't even theorized yet. But we chose restraint over conquest, Vasquez said. We believed that intelligence and wisdom were more valuable than simple technological superiority. We wanted to give you the opportunity to prove that the Council could be a force for good in the galaxy. Her expression hardened as she continued. Your threats against our civilians and your casual discussion of genocide have proven that our hope was misplaced. The Council views other species as resources to be exploited, not civilizations to be respected. The chamber was completely silent as every council member absorbed the magnitude of their situation. They had threatened a species that could have destroyed them at any time, mistaking restraint for weakness and patience for fear. We will not permit the Council's current behavior to continue, Vasquez announced. From this moment forward, any species that wishes to leave Council territory and seek human protection will be granted safe passage. Any attempt to harm civilians of any species will result in immediate intervention. Trade Minister Click spoke up weakly. What do you want from us? Nothing, Vasquez replied simply. We no longer have any interest in negotiating with your current government. The Council has proven itself unworthy of the authority it claims. The transmission ended, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Slowly, the full implications of humanity's revelation began to sink in. Earth had built the most powerful civilization in the galaxy, while allowing the Council to believe they were primitive and helpless. Now that the truth was revealed, the balance of power had shifted completely. What do we do now? Asked Administrator Kix. For the first time in his career, High Counselor Vexthul had no answer. The Council had spent decades planning humanity's conquest, never realizing that they were the ones being observed and evaluated. They had failed that evaluation completely, and now faced the consequences of their own arrogance. Outside the assembly hall, reports continued arriving of human fleets maintaining position throughout Council space. Not attacking, not demanding surrender, but simply making it clear that the old order was finished. The age of Council dominance was over. The age of humanity had begun. 6 months after humanity's revelation, the galaxy looked completely different. President Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the new orbital station above Earth, watching ships from dozens of different species arrive and depart in peaceful cooperation. The view would have been impossible just a year ago. Madam President, Admiral Torres said, joining her at the massive window. The latest reports from our diplomatic missions. Elena accepted the datapad and scrolled through the updates. The numbers told an incredible story of transformation. 43 species had formally requested human protection and withdrawn from Council territory. 17 worlds had declared independence from their Council governments. Even within the remaining Council systems, civilian populations were demanding changes to policies that had oppressed non-Council species for decades. How are the refugee relocations proceeding? Elena asked. Better than expected, Torres replied. Our colony ships have successfully relocated over 12 million beings from species that were facing Council oppression. The new settlements are thriving and integration programs are showing excellent results. Elena smiled as she watched a transport ship from the Catherian Republic dock with the station. The Catherians had been one of the first species to request human protection after the Council had planned to strip mine their homeworld for rare minerals. Now they were valuable partners in humanity's growing alliance of free worlds. Any word from the Council itself? Elena asked. Torres's expression darkened slightly. The official Council government maintains its position that humanity is a rogue civilization that must be stopped. But our intelligence reports show that individual member species are reconsidering their positions. The political situation within Council space had become increasingly unstable as more species learned about humanity's actual capabilities. 3 Council member governments had already fallen to internal revolutions, replaced by leaders who wanted to negotiate with Earth rather than oppose it. The Zenthari Empire is the main holdout, Torres continued. Vexthul refuses to acknowledge that the old system has failed. He's been calling for a military alliance against humanity. Elena wasn't surprised. Vexthul's entire identity was built around Council superiority, and his own authority as High Counselor. Accepting that humanity was more advanced would require admitting that his entire worldview was wrong. What about the other species' response to his calls for alliance? Elena asked. Mixed, Torres replied. Some of the more aggressive Council species support him, but the others are too smart to fight a war they can't win. Our agents report that even Vexthul's own military leaders are questioning the wisdom of opposing us. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority communication. Elena activated the holographic display which showed Director Chen of Human Intelligence. Madam President, Chen reported, we've just received a significant development. The hegemony has formally voted to withdraw from the Council and is requesting membership in the Human Alliance. Elena felt a surge of satisfaction. The hegemony was one of the Council's founding members and represented over 200 worlds. Their defection would effectively end the Council as a major political force. What prompted their decision? Elena asked. Their analysis concluded that opposing humanity was impossible and economically suicidal, Chen replied. They've also discovered evidence that several Council species were planning to divide hegemony territory among themselves once humanity was defeated. Elena shook her head. Even facing extinction, the Council species couldn't stop plotting against each other. Their entire system was built on exploitation and betrayal rather than cooperation and mutual benefit. Accept their application and begin integration protocols, Elena ordered. Make sure they understand that membership in the Human Alliance requires abandoning all oppressive policies toward other species. The communication ended, and Elena returned to watching the traffic around Earth. The orbital stations that had been built in secret over 50 years were now openly visible, serving as coordination centers for the largest peaceful alliance in galactic history. Torres, Elena said thoughtfully, do you think we made the right choice in revealing ourselves? The Admiral considered the question carefully. Vexthul forced our hand when he threatened civilians. But yes, I think the galaxy is better off now. The Council system was built on fear and oppression. Our system is built on voluntary cooperation and mutual benefit. Elena nodded. remembering the intelligence reports about Council policies toward developing species. Forced labor, resource extraction, cultural suppression, and sometimes outright genocide had been standard practices. The Council had justified these actions by claiming that superior species had the right to rule inferior ones. "Any word from the developing species we've been protecting?" Elena asked. "Excellent progress," Torres replied with genuine enthusiasm. "The Meridian Collective has successfully established 3 new colonies with our technological assistance. The Tau-Cetian Republic has doubled their industrial output using human manufacturing techniques. Most importantly, none of them have been attacked or threatened since we announced our protection. That had been one of humanity's most important policy changes. Instead of simply opposing the Council, Earth had actively begun protecting species that couldn't defend themselves. Advanced technology, economic assistance, and military protection were offered to any civilization that requested help, with no strings attached except a commitment to peaceful behavior. The results had been remarkable. Species that had lived in fear of Council expansion were now thriving under human protection. Technological exchange programs had accelerated development across dozens of worlds. Most importantly, the galaxy's smaller civilizations no longer had to choose between submission and destruction. "Madam President," Communications Officer Davis announced from his station, "we're receiving a transmission from High Counselor Vex Thule." Elena exchanged glances with Admiral Torres. This was the first direct communication from the Council leadership since humanity's revelation. "Put it through," Elena ordered. Vex Thule appeared on the main screen, but he looked very different from the confident leader who had threatened Earth 6 months ago. His purple scales were dull, his elaborate robes were simpler, and his yellow eyes showed the strain of watching his empire crumble around him. "President Vasquez," he began, his voice lacking its former arrogance, "I request a meeting to discuss terms." Elena kept her expression neutral. "What terms would those be, High Counselor?" "The Council is prepared to recognize human sovereignty over your current territory," Vex Thule said, as if he were offering a significant concession. "In exchange, we ask that you cease your interference in Council affairs and return our citizens who have defected to your alliance." Elena almost smiled at the desperation in his voice. Vex Thule was still trying to negotiate from a position of strength, despite having lost most of his territory and allies. "High Counselor," Elena replied calmly, "you seem to misunderstand the situation. Humanity doesn't require Council recognition of our sovereignty. We possess it by right of our ability to defend it." She paused, letting that fact sink in before continuing. "As for your citizens who have joined our alliance, they made that choice freely. We don't return free beings to governments they've chosen to leave." Vex Thule's composure cracked slightly. "The galaxy requires order and structure. Without the Council, there will be chaos and war between species." "You're right that the galaxy requires order," Elena agreed. "But it should be an order based on justice and mutual respect, not fear and oppression. The Council had 50 years to prove it could provide that kind of leadership. It failed." The High Counselor's eyes flashed with anger. "Humanity has no right to impose its will on the galaxy." "We are not imposing anything," Elena replied firmly. "Every species in our alliance joined voluntarily after seeing the benefits of cooperation over domination. No one is forced to accept our protection or adopt our values." She leaned forward slightly, her voice becoming more serious. "But we will not permit the continuation of policies that lead to genocide, slavery, or the oppression of developing civilizations." "The old Council system is finished, Vex Thule. The only question is whether you'll adapt to the new reality or be left behind by it." The transmission ended with Vex Thule's face showing a mixture of rage and despair. Elena knew that he would probably continue trying to rebuild Council power, but his efforts were doomed to fail. Too many species had seen the benefits of freedom and cooperation to willingly return to the old system of fear and submission. "What are your orders regarding the remaining Council holdouts?" Admiral Torres asked. "Continue monitoring them, but don't interfere unless they threaten civilians," Elena replied. "Eventually, they'll either change their policies or find themselves completely isolated. Either way, they won't be able to hurt anyone else." Elena returned to watching the ships outside the station, marveling at the diversity of species working together in harmony. Humans, Catherians, Meridians, and dozens of other civilizations were building a new kind of galactic community based on cooperation rather than conquest. The revelation of humanity's true capabilities had been necessary to stop the Council's planned genocide. but Elena hoped it would lead to something much more important.